All right, hello. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for making it straight after Satya's presentation into the first breakout session of the day. My name is Jared Lambert. I'm a group product manager on the Microsoft Cloud for Financial Services team. So I'm going to talk to you about a bunch of awesome things today. First, we're going to talk about the cloud for financial services and the types of things and investments we're making to be more compliant and more secure in the Microsoft Cloud. Then we're going to jump into data and AI. I've got a special guest presenter with me from McKinsey today who's going to talk to us a bit about some of the insights that they have on the financial landscape and the impacts AI is having in that space. And then I'm going to jump into where we see AI going in the financial services area. You saw Satya talk a ton about agents today. We're going to get into that, and we're going to show you an example of 13 different partner agents in about 90 seconds. So I'm really excited for that toward the end, so stick around for that bit of the demo. All right, without further ado, I'm going to jump right into it. So financial services organizations ask us to do a lot of different things. And depending on who you talk with, whether it's a bank, an insurance company, a capital markets organization, they come off with a number of different things they're concerned about. The first couple of areas here is almost always they're trying to figure out how they transform the experiences they're delivering to their customers. And that can be in a lot of different ways. It can be from making their call center more efficient and more exciting for the people that go and engage with it. It can be changing their core products, offering a new line. It can be a neobank who's trying to operate in a whole new way and trying to engage with customers via a different mechanism or channel than they typically have. We see a ton of AI innovation starting to happen in this space. That said, many of those organizations start with the second area, and they start internally with their own employees and say, how can I make my employees more efficient, more effective, and give the best experience so I can also attract the best talent into my organization? And here we see things like agent assist technologies, know your customer, know your product, the ability to look up what's happening in your own company. Tons of AI innovations also happening in this space. That said, the next two tend to be the most important to your IT departments who are trying to figure out, how do I do this in a compliant way? How do I go and implement AI in a way that is hardened, secure? I'm not going to accidentally do something that's going to put my business at risk. In addition to, if I don't have my data already in the cloud, and the stats today say that about 31% of banks have more than 50% of their workloads in the cloud. And unfortunately, in order to really leverage AI, because AI innovation is coming first and sometimes only to the public cloud environments, you have to get your data there and accessible. And so figuring out how you modernize off of your mainframe and how you decompose some of that work that you're doing is really important and is another major focus that we talk to our financial services customers about. So in the first half of this talk, I'm going to talk to you about these ones, number 3 and number 4, and how you get to this environment where you can do the cool things in AI. And then in the last half, I'm going to talk to you about the left-hand side here, at least left-hand for me. All right, so let's jump into it. So as we looked at doing all of these things and we needed to actually get these done, we wanted to figure out how can we use the Microsoft Cloud to help. Oftentimes, technology is cited as one of the biggest issues leading into this space. And we said, OK, well, we've got a few things that we can bring to bear here. We operate over 300 data centers around the world. Satya talked about our 60-plus regions. We do a little bit in the data and AI space. I don't know if you've been watching our investments lately, but we invest $10 to $15 billion a quarter for the last, I think we're at 9 quarters now at investing at that level, which is just massive in the grand scheme of things, as well as operating the largest security infrastructure on the planet, bringing in over 76 trillion signals every single day to be analyzed by our security teams. So how can we take all of this and build something that helps our customers achieve what they need to achieve at the end of the day? And so what we did is we went and created this thing called an industry cloud. An industry cloud, don't think like this is a separate data center, this is a separate rack, a different building, it's none of those things. It is just a wrapper around the types of capabilities that financial services organizations need most. So it's a way for us to say, okay, how do we group together the core capabilities that are important? For instance, in the Azure Logic App team, the Azure Logic Apps team, our names of products are always fun, they have a product that helps you connect to mainframes and to help understand what's happening in those mainframes. That's something a financial services organization would want to know a lot about. And so how do we collect all those things together? So our industry clouds help us do that. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about the Microsoft Cloud for Financial Services. If you've been with Microsoft for long, you'll probably notice that this is shifting a bit. We're making a lot of changes in the strategy in this space towards more of a platform focus. And so this is our updated, new and improved version of what our Cloud for Financial Services offers. I'm going to start at the bottom. So at the very bottom layer of this is you have to have compliant, secure, scalable infrastructure at the end of the day. So this infrastructure In financial services specifically, we're thinking about things like managed HSMs, we're thinking about confidential computing, we're thinking about transaction latency. We're thinking about what does it take to ensure that our financial services customers get the number of nines that they need to be able to operate critical workloads in public cloud environments. And we're finding that we can do a great job in these environments, despite having change coming in and coming into those environments every single day. So that's the first focus, cloud infrastructure that's ready for financial services. The next focus is around security and compliance. We have a ton here. Really, though, what we want to enable is we want to figure out how we can let our financial services customers innovate as much as they possibly can with their individual dev teams, but by putting guardrails in place so that they don't step outside the line or they don't accidentally do something that puts themselves at risk. I'm sure you've all read about the various things where somebody put an email server online or did some crazy thing, and somebody went and got in. And we want to make sure that can't happen in our cloud. And so we're building a series of things that you can implement to make that easier. And I'll talk about some of these tools here in a minute. Next is around data and AI. One of the things that I think is really unique about financial services in the AI space, if you walk into most organizations, they use productivity tools to get their job done. They're using Teams, they're using Word, they're using PowerPoint, they're using Excel. Especially in financial services, Excel seems to be the primary canvas of focus. But they also have these best-of-breed partners that bring in great data. So these are people like FactSet, Moody's, DNB, these London Stock Exchange Group, all these people that bring in extra capabilities into whatever it is that they're trying to do. And so what's really important for financial services is that you can bring all of that into your AI environment. Because AI just on your data isn't good enough. You need to be able to do your data plus your partner's data. And again, I'm going to talk a bit more about this in a bit. Last but not least is a set of industry accelerators. So these are templates that we can bring together that help you do the things faster. So we've got one that we're going to talk about that gives you an AI assistant that's hardened and ready to go for financial services customers. We've got a bunch of these that are coming out. We're really excited about the things we can do in this space and putting them into GitHub and the open source market. Last but not least is our partner ecosystem. Our partners are our lifeblood here. Our partners are the best of breed in this space. There are some amazing partners in the financial services ecosystem. I'm hoping some of you are in the room here today. And it is really important that those folks are operating in the same way and that we are all saying the same thing. So we work with those partners to ensure that they are operating in the most secure way possible and integrated into our ecosystem. So this thing all together is the cloud for financial services. This is the same thing, just with a little bit more detail. Again, Microsoft Cloud Infrastructure, security and compliance, data and AI, industry accelerators, and our partner ecosystem together make up the Microsoft Cloud for financial services. So I want to start jumping into some of these capabilities and some of the investments that we're making. Most of these are being announced for the first time today. So without further ado, the first thing that we're going after, one of the things at least that's near and dear to my heart, is finding information for financial services is so hard. There is so much of it everywhere, right? Whether you want to find out which services support CMK, you want to figure out how does Microsoft handle PCI compliance. There's about 8 different places you have to go before you find the right data. So we've started building a single place for financial services guidance. It's at AKAMS/Cloud4FS. So you can go there, you can read all about it, you can get more detail on the types of things I'm talking about today, because I can't possibly do it justice in the 45 minutes or so I have with you here today. So that's the first thing we're really excited about, and we're going to be adding a whole bunch more. We have a large team that's all kind of sitting over here on the right-hand side that spends all of their days working with customers, understanding their problems, synthesizing those solutions, and then committing them back to this repository. So we're really excited about some of the stuff coming on this site. The next big investment we're making is around landing zones. So landing zones are interesting. How many of you guys have heard of landing zones? Am I talking to a group that doesn't or has heard? Okay, about 50-50, seems good. So landing zones, for those of you who are not aware of what they are a control in Azure that you can use to put guardrails around what you do in your Azure subscriptions. So it's policy as code, infrastructure as code that you can go and deploy. The Azure Landing Zone is a pretty mature product. It has, I think I just saw 43,000 people looked at it last month, and about 7,000 of them deployed it in some way, shape, or form. So it gets a ton of usage at enterprises all over the world. However, what I've heard from banks and financial services institutions is that they need more. They need additional controls that aren't really great for the entire world, but are what we need to do to win financial services business. And so we've gone and created a variant of this. Now, it's built on top of the Azure Landing Zone, so you continue to get all the benefits of Azure Landing Zone, and you just see this variant, which is an opinion on the Azure Landing Zone of the types of things you need. So what are those types of opinions that we put out? There's a few. These are control objectives. Hopefully you can see this. I'm not exactly sure how small it is, but there's 4 big ones. One is a sovereignty objective, and being able to keep your data in a given region, and being able to control who has access to your data. Think about leveraging things like confidential computing, which are an amazing way to ensure that only you can access your data at the end of the day. Then we get into a transparency objective. This has a number of cool things in it. One, about being able to understand what's happening on your environment, being able to understand what Microsoft operators are doing that might touch your environment in some way, shape, or form, being able to approve the access of Microsoft operators if and when needed, and being able to know about incidents and outages in your environment. Next up is around resiliency, ensuring that you have active resiliency in the workloads that you deploy. And then last is secure by default. These are some of the most controversial. These are basically setting every setting in your environment to off by default. So imagine empty firewall rules. You can imagine this makes it a little tough to start your deployments, but is a way that many banks and many FSI institutions operate today. It also allows you to shift down to an allow list of services that have a baseline set of capabilities that are really important for financial services groups. So when something comes out, it may not be able to do all of the capabilities that a bank potentially needs it to do. And so we want to ensure that that list is the products that we think meet the bar for our banks of the world. So these are some of the policy control objectives. We just got the first set of these out in preview. They just came out a couple of days ago, so you can go see these on GitHub right now and start consuming them, give us feedback. They're all in preview today, and we're going to be adding a bunch more over the coming months. So we're really excited about the innovations in this space. Further to this, there's another team today, and I'm doing a one-slide version of their 45-minute talk you should certainly go to, called Regulated Environment Management. This is a new capability coming to Azure. It's in private preview today, coming in public preview next year. I'm so excited about it. It is effectively giving us a service-based way to manage those landing zones. So you can take those landing zones, you can take that policy as code, and you can manage it live in the cloud. But it's not just managing a one-time deployment of it or configuring it, but also the ongoing maintenance of it. So if something changes or drifts, whether that's due to some change you made or an exception you made, or something Microsoft did, maybe a new technology came out and you need to be aware of it, this tool helps you understand and see how that's working. You define the types of objectives you have as an organization. Maybe you're a bank that needs to be PCI compliant in Canada. And then we take from there and say, okay, here are the policy objectives that we think are appropriate for that. Here are the types of controls you would need, and you can manage and monitor that environment over time. So we're really excited about bringing some of these capabilities straight into Azure and straight into some of our other development environments directly. So again, this will be coming next year, and you should go to a session. I'll give you the session code at the end of this talk to go see more about that. There's an excellent demo by Kevin that you should go see. So this is a really cool investment too. All right, next up, control frameworks and hardened infrastructure. So there's this group, they're called FinOS. I don't know, how many people have heard of FinOS in the room? All right, okay, about 20% maybe. They're an awesome open source organization, I'm a big fan, that works on bringing a group of banks together to agree on a set of controls and capabilities that they need as a group. They are cross-cloud, they're not a single cloud provider specific, but they're just getting their feet off the ground. One of the things they've released recently is an AI governance framework. It defines a set of threats and controls that people should consider when implementing AI solutions in a financial services context. And they have a board of financial services institutions that have gone and looked at those regulations. They released their first preview of this about a month ago, I'd say, and it's out there. Now, what we're doing is we're working with them on those to then implement solutions that meet those controls. So we can go out and say that we've built this information assistant solution that's just a basic RAG AI solution, but we can also show you how that maps to those controls. And we can say, okay, if you're trying to figure out how to meet TR2 and TR3 with this control, here's a solution that actually does it and what we think is the right way to do it on our cloud. So you can go see more about that. That's also live today. And there's also a session on Friday morning in case you weren't trying to recover on Friday morning. You can go watch that session as well with Miriam. It's an awesome one that I would recommend. So we're really excited about that and the next steps that we're going to be making with both FinOS and with our AI solutions that connect to those control sets for financial services. All right, So that's the base. That's some of the things we're doing to really get your core infrastructure and your core data compliant so that you can use it to enable an AI solution in the cloud. So next up, I've got a bit of a guest speaker coming in for you here today. I've always been really impressed with the way that McKinsey has been able to capture the financial services insights that lead to creating great AI solutions. So I'd love for Tony to come and tell you himself. So I'm going to welcome Tony on stage to come and tell us a little bit more about the AI solutions. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Jared. Hi, everybody. I'm Tony Castro, partner at McKinsey. I spend all of my time in the last 25 years on the AI topic. Started out as an engineer. I think my first AI deployment was on an ISAPI application on Windows NT 4. For some of you guys who've been around for a long time ago, you understand what that means when we're making the shift from CGI bin. Jared asked me to talk today to kind of maybe frame a couple things for this group, right? Number one, why so much energy and pressure? Like what's really going on? What are financial firms being asked for by their boards to deliver impact with AI? And then number two, as you guys all sit in the space, like what can you do about it? How do we help unlock the value at scale, right? So I'll just spend a little bit of time kind of framing that. He only gave me a few minutes, so hopefully I can get there with you guys. But maybe just by way of show of hands, how many of you guys are already in the depths of deploying Gen AI at some level? That's fantastic. How many, keep your hands up. For those of you guys, how many of you are actually got more than 2,000 users online today? All right, still a lot of you. And then how many of you guys have actually banked the value, meaning like bottom line, taking out cost, driving real growth? Great, so even a few of you guys. So this is fantastic. All right, let me start with maybe setting the stage a little bit around why, right? So if you draw the maybe a little bit of a reality check of where we are as an industry. Financial services is one of the largest, income generating markets, right, of all sectors, right? However, the sector doesn't get credit for the value it's generating, right? If you look at the book value of any financial firm, it doesn't reflect the amount of revenue that's being generated, the amount of return that's being generated, right? So what this means is that investors are really looking for something more, right? They're looking for value generation different than what we've seen before. Now, we're at a key moment, right? So if you think about, hey, Gen AI suddenly became a headline, everyone's sitting on top of this, hey, there's something amazing we can do. This is like a really critical moment for the industry. So historically, the way that value was generated was by cutting costs, right? And that playbook just isn't working anymore, right? And so when investors are looking at banks and financial firms and saying, hey, how do we drive additional value? They're looking for real differentiation. They're looking for something to get ahead. And here enters this moment where suddenly Gen AI reminded everyone that there's so much value that we aren't getting out of some of the investments we're getting. One of the most frustrating things about this, if you're, as many of you guys sit inside of the financial institutions, is you invest a ton of money, but yet productivity numbers have been flat, right? No matter how you look at it, productivity hasn't changed in this industry. So it's like running on a treadmill every single day and not losing any weight, right? So investors are looking at that, they're putting pressure on their boards, and that's why we're seeing so much energy, especially in this sector, to go after and try to do something different. And what are people excited about? They're excited that there's over $300 billion in value to be unlocked here. There are firms who are going to get ahead of this. There are firms who are going to take an outsized share of it. And so all the investors who do spend a lot of time looking at this market, they're looking for the ones who are pulling ahead and actually creating competitive distance, right? And we're seeing some of that already. It sounds like some of you guys are deep in the trenches of this, right? We're seeing it in software engineering. We're seeing it across the entire SDLC. We're seeing it in risk and compliance, where folks are reducing the amount of work it takes to produce a regulatory report, right? We're seeing it in customer operations, right, where we're able to respond to a larger number of client inquiries. in a very short amount of time and with automation. And we're seeing some great examples, right? So this first generation of use cases over the last 12 to 18 months are good just highlights. And all of these are public, so you guys have probably seen all of these headlines. But whether it's Goldman Sachs and their push on the end-to-end SDLC, whether it's Wells Fargo and Klarna who are making headway on real client-facing generative AI, or Morgan Stanley who's making their RMs and their relationship managers much more efficient. These are just real first tranche of use cases, but most of them are still struggling to get to the full scale of impact, right? Most of these are started, most of these are piloted, most of these have several hundred users, right? But not necessarily on the bottom line. We actually surveyed many of the banks recently, and out of 40 or so financial institutions, only 15%, maybe about 7 of them, had actually banked outcome into their long-term plans, right? So that means that as they do their forward-looking projections, the value of the investments they're making in AI, they haven't actually put into their forward-looking forecasts. So what I thought would be helpful is that was the first generation of use cases, right? And I think everybody in the room's probably had a bit of that. The next generation of use cases that we're seeing is in agentic frameworks, and I think the agentic word is probably going to be the word of 2025. Why do we care about this? The first tranche of use cases were valuable. They're very transactional, summarize an email, summarize a call, take an action on behalf of a client. The next generation just do 3 things that are different. One is that they're able to orchestrate a process end to end, right? Number 2, they're able to handle it dynamically, right? New data comes in, new types of forms come in. And number 3, they're able to put an increasing amount of quality control, which is one of the key constraints that most of financial institutions are struggling with when they think about scaling these use cases. So probably best brought to life with an example. Sarah here is, I brought in mostly as a caricature of a dozen or so banks who are somewhere on the journey where they're looking at commercial credit. So imagine Sarah. Sarah's an executive, runs commercial banking business. She's typically she's from a mid-sized firm. She's typically wins her business by being much more personal and much more responsive to most of her clients when they're applying for credit. But she's starting to see a lot of competition, right? She's getting pulled in. She's losing to people who are responding faster. The larger banks are taking their market share. So Sarah recognizes that she's not fast, right? Her team is not fast because they're manually reviewing documents, they're manually reviewing financial statements, they're going back and forth between the underwriter, the risk manager, the client, just trying to unpack what's happening, and 2 weeks later, they go back to a client with a proposal, right? In the meantime, their next competitor is doing that in a week. So Sarah makes the investment to say, hey, we want to try something different, right? Why don't we actually have a set of agents that can orchestrate, that can basically say, here are all the things that look interesting about this potential client. Here are the different ways that we might analyze that. What's happening in their financials? What's the notes in their financial statements? What are the conversations? So that I can get to an 80% answer. I can have another agent dynamically come in and say, well, here's 5 risk mitigation factors that we need to consider, right? Actually construct a set of covenants into that contract, and then have a QC to review the compliance. And now the underwriter can see the entire dialogue of 5 different bots, understanding that, be able to get really confident that the analysis was solid and that there's real opportunity to serve this client in a new way, right? So what I was really excited about when Jared was talking earlier around the investments Microsoft's making, there were some amazing things that got right at the heart of what's holding back most of this industry, right? It's a regulated industry. There are a lot of controls. We're still trying to get through that first tranche of use cases just to get through all of the risk and controls and guardrails, if you will. Now we have this new tranche coming, right? And it's another set of challenges for this group to tackle. And Jared's actually going to share a bit more about what Microsoft's doing in this space to help you guys, as your imperative, to unlock this value. This is probably the most important thing, I think, as technologists in the industry we could be spending time on and helping our industry can up their game. Right. So I'm going to hand it back to Jared to talk about Microsoft's investments in this space.
Thank you, Tony. Insightful as always, sir. All right, so let's keep in the frame of Sarah and how she gets work done every single day. So I think at the end of the day, we're all a little bit like Sarah. We're using all of these different applications to try and get things done, whether that's your line of business apps that you've gone and made that are your own special sauce, whether that's an application that you buy from a partner, a particular solution, or a Microsoft app that you use for productivity, whether that's Teams, Excel, PowerPoint, whatever it is. You have to use all of these things. You go through 20 different tabs if you're anything like I am, and you're copying and pasting things around to go and get them done at the end of the day. This is what is ripe for change. And I want to walk you through the journey that we think this is going to go on and our prediction as to the direction it's going, and some of the companies that are doing great work to head in this direction. So most companies today start with their core app. They've got something. Maybe it's their bank's website that you can go, you can look up your bank account balance, you can pay bills, you can do these basic things. And what everybody's doing right now is adding one of these bad boys. They're going and putting this little slide in where you can go and chat with an agent on the side. And some of these are pretty good, but some of them are also a little bit lame, right? If you can go and ask, what's my bank account balance, but it was sitting up there in the top left of the page, did you really add that much value at the end of the day? But some of them are starting to get smarter, and they're starting to be able to answer more complex queries, and they're bringing back generative UX. So they're being able to say, you can ask a question like, how much did I spend at Starbucks over the last year? And it will go and figure that out for you, and it'll give you a line chart over time of how much you're spending. And so those are starting to get a little bit smarter. And then you start to imagine, if I am the developer on this page, and I'm sitting here thinking, how do I add all of these controls? How do I modify this so that it works right? Or I could just feed that data to an agent, and somebody else can handle all of that. You start thinking, you know what? Maybe I could try to do this with just an agent. And we're seeing that happen more and more and more in this world. And so what we think is going to start to happen is that these will move from being this experience on the side to being the experience that's in the center of the application. So it'll actually move into the middle, where you'll be able to mainly interact with that, because it's going to bring back contextual information just for you. Actually, I just talked to a bank who told me they spent the last year doing no additional work on their feature set because they were only doing accessibility-based features. But imagine if Copilot could handle that for you. It already knew that you were red-green colorblind, or it already knew how to use your assistive devices. There's so many opportunities to make this easier for our developers and to start to bring this into our product, not just for the new capabilities it offers, but for the ease that it offers our teams who are building these applications. So when you start being able to do that, then you start to say, wait a minute, why did I have to go to my bank's website at all? All of us, we believe, are going to have their own personal assistant that you're working with at the end of the day. Ours is Copilot. You can imagine a number of others. Why can't you just go and ask that and say, hey, Copilot, how much is in my bank account, or how much did I spend at Starbucks over the last year? And so we see that same experience, that rich experience that was built inside of our application, now moving into other experiences. So you are wherever you had a focused environment. And this isn't just in Teams. It's not just a chat experience. Imagine this coming into PowerPoint or Excel. Imagine if you're in Excel and you could say, Copilot, how much did I spend on Starbucks over the last year? And it could give you all the transactions straight into your Excel workbook. And while it's a kind of a dumb scenario for a regular human, hopefully you're not tracking that closely, but you can imagine it comes in very handy when you're doing various Excel integrations. Same thing with PowerPoint. You need to prep a deck for a client presentation, a pitch book, something along those lines. Pull data straight from the source into where you need it to be. Don't have to go and move and change context and munge data and switch things around. Bring it to the context that you're already in. Then, after you've done this, then you can start saying pretty obviously, you can do more than one of these things. So bring in lots of them. So for instance, let's say Starbucks has an app. I could go and also say to Starbucks, well, it knows exactly what I bought in that store, not just how much I spent. I can know how many calories I've gained at Starbucks over the last year, which I don't really want to know the answer to. But I could find that out if I wanted to. And I could create a PowerPoint deck about it to maybe convince my wife to stop ordering so much. I don't know. Whatever I need to go and build here, I could go after. And so you can start bringing these things together, and they can start to work with each other. So you can pull data from different sources. You can start to act autonomously. And you can say, hey, notify me when something happens, like when there's a certain market shift or change, or when one of my customers does something weird with one of their accounts, or when something changes in the world that I need to know about. go and take this action. Or maybe when I get a particular email about something, I want to go and look at information from that email, and I want to look at it in some other application. So we see all of this starting to come together, where Copilot plus a number of agents start to deliver this. And it's not just an or, it's an and. So I don't think that we're going to remove all the apps from the face of the planet. I think you're going to go into an app when you want to focus. So if you want to go to a Bloomberg terminal, for instance, you're not going to replace that with a Copilot. You're going to want to go there and do this whole big experience. And there, you're going to pull in all of the insights from all of your other applications into that experience. Or maybe you're in Teams collaborating. You want to pull all of those experiences into that location. Or maybe you're in Excel and you're trying to come up with an analysis for your boss. Again, you want to pull in data from all of your best-of-breed partner applications, your line of business apps, and your productivity. Maybe Fred from accounting sent you an email last week about a particular thing, and you want that to be an insight that you're going to use. At the end of the day, the way we see it is that Copilots are going to transform the way we work. It's going to be you as a person working with a Copilot that's one-to-one assigned with you, working with a sea of agents that are out there coming from all of these different partner applications to get work done at the end of the day. We're going to see a shift from apps as the core UI to Copilot as your core UI. Even at Microsoft, we're taking our front-end teams. In Dynamics, over 60% of our front page is AI generated already. We've taken over 80% of our front-end teams and started saying, what if you delivered your experience through Copilot? What would that look like? And so I would really be thinking about where you're making those investments in front ends. Where can Copilot be your front end instead? And what would that look like? Your workflows start to move from these really crisply defined things that are very static to agents that can figure out and can just have a loose idea of what's happening. And your data moves into being knowledge and actual insights about your customers, your products, et cetera. Now, I promised you that I would show you 13 demos here at the end, so I'm going to go through these. We've got a quick video of 13 different partners who have all built some great agentic capabilities that we're really excited to show you today. You're the first people to see it, so I hope you like it.
It is transforming the workplace, with agents enabling financial services everywhere, turning hours of work into seconds. Meet our partner network, using agents to create unparalleled value for our customers. Unlocking financial services specific skills to meet your needs wherever you are. We're reshaping the ecosystem for tomorrow. What are you waiting for?
So I couldn't be more excited about some of the things that our partners are doing. I will tell you, we originally set out, we're like, hey, let's go find some really cool partners. And there were over 20 of them at the end of the day. And we were like, oh my gosh, we have too many. And you probably already were thinking, oh my God, how many more of these are coming in this video? And we had to cut it way down just to some of our favorite ones here. So I'm really excited about things that the ecosystem is doing in this space. So if you're a partner, go take a look at these. They're really easy to build with things like Copilot Studio and AI Foundry. I'll get into those in a minute. And if you're a customer, start looking at how you can bring these into your organization as a better way to use some of these applications and capabilities that exist for your employees. I'll also add that we're starting to see early impact numbers from customers who are actually using these things at the end of the day. And so these are some of the early impacts. And again, I think there's so much further to go here with better integration with your productivity apps, with all of your applications and working together and agentic behaviors and all this great stuff. But our early impact numbers coming in on just the basics are impressive. In the experience space, and this is mostly in call centers, we're seeing a double in self-service resolution and a 10% increase in CSAT on the same customer calls. For employees, we're seeing up to 80% less time spent on data collection at the end of the day. And for managing risk and compliance, we're seeing investigator time reduced. And developers is just such an easy use case where we're seeing GitHub Copilot is improving developer productivity by 40% or more, especially true in legacy code. So if you look into things like COBOL, giving somebody who's only okay at COBOL, which I don't know how many of you are great at COBOL here in the room. If so, you're probably highly valuable. But if you're trying to do that migration, GitHub Copilot can go and summarize to you what a piece of code does, help write a spec to help you understand how to replace it, et cetera. So there's a ton. I would say this stat is even higher in those legacy modernization use cases. So early impact numbers are coming back, and we're really excited about what we can do here and what we're going to be able to do over the next year. So let's get into the tech about it. There are every single icon on this page has several hours of sessions you can go to this week, and I'd highly recommend a bunch of them. I'm going to give you sessions to go to here in just a moment. One of the hardest things to do in this space is to look across the ecosystems of things Microsoft offers and say, okay, what of this is important? How do I think about it all? So this is Jared's version on a single slide of what is the Microsoft ecosystem of tools to help me go and build these things. So first off, everything bases on the Azure AI Foundry. There are over 40 different services, model catalogs, all sorts of great stuff sitting in the Azure AI Foundry. Use those tools to go and build everything else. Then, on top of that, there are a set of studios. These make it easier to pull tools from all of those different environments. So Copilot Studio is the low-code environment. If you want to build something fast and easy and check it out, that's the way to go do it. Anybody can do it. You want to go and say, I don't know, what if we deliver a Copilot for our website? You can build one in 5 minutes. Just go there, build one yourself, and see how it works. It's a really great, fast development environment. Visual Studio gives you all the power and controls you need to productionize something and take it out to a massive scale. And GitHub gives you direct integration with GitHub Copilot and natural language. So these are the studio environments. And then on top of that, not pictured here, is a set of channels that you want to operate into. Whether you publish into the M365 Copilot ecosystem, you publish it as a bot in any of your known bot frameworks, think like Facebook, Twitter, or whatever, one of your call center agents. Whatever you want to publish to. And then third is your applications. So you can deploy it to your own website or your own app, whatever it is that you have. So this is how I think about this whole space. You should go learn about all of this stuff. The other cool one I'll call out in here is Azure AI Agent Service, which is set to launch next month. But they've got a bunch of great sessions this week. Go look at that. Really groundbreaking stuff there. Some really great sessions. So I've recommended about 8 sessions if you were keeping count as I talked throughout the day today. These are those sessions so that you don't have to go back and think through what was that guy telling me I should go hear about. I didn't put the times because they were changing when I made the list, but I went through all the sessions at Ignite and tried to pick out the ones that I thought were most relevant to financial services and the most helpful to building AI and AI agents. The AI breakouts at the top are mostly rooms like this one, where you can learn about new technologies. The bottom are these theater demos that are showing you examples of how it's actually in use. So you can go see those landing zones get deployed with the regulated industries. You can go check out a cool model that Fidelity and Safer built that I'm really excited about, where they changed the underlying model to be more compliant and FINRA compliant. And so there's some really great demos in that space you should go check out. There's also a 2-partner session. If you're a partner in here that Adrienne in the corner here leads, that's a really great one to go and check out. In addition, you can read more online at Cloud4FS, and you can go check out our booth in the expo. They've got a number of demos, including all the ones that I cut from this demo are all there. You can also do many of them live, so you can go and play with them and ask them questions yourself and see how it works. I'm particularly fond of some of the London Stock Exchange ones. I think they're pretty cool. So That's what I've got in terms of things to go and see, and I'm on time, surprisingly, which was a bit of a question at the beginning of all of the content for today. That's all we have for today. If you have any questions, there's a whole group of financial services experts over here in the corner. We're happy to chat with you more afterwards. Thank you.